This episode of Dear Culture Podcast is brought to you by the all-new Honda HR-V. Every creator is driven by a strong sense of curiosity, and the 2023 HR-V is ready for any path that the power of determination can lead to. With sleek exterior styling and a spacious interior, this SUV is a statement piece, made to keep up with the pace of your dynamic lifestyle. The all-new Honda HR-V. Learn more at thebestlookingrvever.com.
Air Force Two, and I was going through the cabinets, and this is when I knew that we had a Black First family. There was packets of grape Kool-Aid in the cabinet, so I had to take a package of grape Kool-Aid off Air Force Two and bring it home, dog.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Dear Culture, the podcast for, by, and about Black culture. And we are blessed today to be joined by a celebrity, a special guest, somebody that all of us know from the Blackish universe. But I got to be honest with you, brother, I go all the way back to Z-Boy in the movie Trippin'. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So we are joined today by Anthony Anderson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, bro. I'm doing great. You go back to Z-Boy, man. G's Trippin'. Yeah, that was in the beginning.
Yeah, one of my favorite movies, like, ever. I watch that movie I own the DVD.
Okay.
When my kids are age appropriate, I'll let them watch it.
That has an all-star cast. Donald Faison, myself, Dion Richmond, D'Artagnan, Countess Vaughn, Stoney Jackson,
the great Stoney Jackson.
Yeah, oh man, yeah, you're bringing back memories now.
Yeah, man. And, we're appreciative of having some time here with you today. We're going to talk a little bit about HBCUs and this great film project that you have coming out. I've seen the trailer. It looks to be amazing. I can't wait to talk about that. But, congratulations are in order to you. You recently finished at the Mecca, Howard University, finished that degree. You know how we say in the Black community, you finished summa cum laude or thank you, laude, but you finished, right? I went to Morehouse, so I went to Morehouse, so I understand that journey. My wife went to Howard, so I have some sympathies for y'all. Like, congratulations. But I have to ask, I've never heard this story. How did you end up at Howard in the first place?
My senior year, my English teacher, Ms. Gail Spann, who I'm still friends with to this day, suggested that I go to Howard. And Howard was actually the only university that I applied to.
Really?
Growing up in Compton, living in LA, graduating from Hollywood Performing Arts Magnet School, I applied and got accepted to the theater program and, started my journey back in 1988, alongside Carl Payne, Wendy Raquel Robinson, Wendy Davis, Puff, Taraji P. Henson, and countless others. And so that's how it all began for me, man. And, unfortunately, had to leave after my junior year due to financial hardship. I couldn't afford school anymore, and I couldn't depend on my parents to help me out with tuition, having 3 younger brothers and sisters at home. And so I left after my junior year in 1991. And, my son got accepted 4 years ago, and so I started the narrative that I was inspired to go back to Howard to graduate with my son in 2022, and here we are today.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I mean, from what I can't tell you how many countless individuals I know who had to leave school at some point for financial reasons. Like it's a standard issue HBCU story for so many of us. Unfortunately, so thankfully you were able to get back in there and finish, no matter how long it took, no matter when it took, you got back in there. I do have to ask, though, because those early 90s years of Howard are kind of legendary, especially like in hip hop culture, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, what was it like being on the Yard back in the late 80s, early 90s when all those people, like you said, were there, when the hit, like Homecoming was still like the Mecca Homecoming? Like, what was that like?
Words can't even begin to describe what that was like, man. I mean, a Friday afternoon on the Yard at HU, just a regular Friday, Guy would come through and just hang out on the yard and play music. A Tribe Called Quest would come through and just hang out on the yard. Heavy D, later on down the years, Big would come through. I mean, and this was just a Friday afternoon, not to mention what was going on during homecoming. So, like I say, man, it was, words can't begin to describe the energy that was there. I mean, you listen to all the people I just named: Carl Payne, Wendy Robinson, Paula J. Parker, Taraji, myself, Puff, Ananda Lewis, Marlon Wayans, the musical group Shy. Imagine all of that creative energy in one place at the same time. And you look at how everybody have gone off in their respective fields to become, the captains of industry that we are. It's truly amazing. So if you can just imagine all of those people, all of that energy, that creative energy, in this little town, little area, little section on campus, incubating what was in store for the future. Words can't begin to explain how that felt, man. You had to be there.
It sounds like it. And I have this romantic ideology of what it was like there during that time anyway. And everybody I've ever talked to who speaks about their time at Howard, especially during those years, speaks about it the same way. I went to Morehouse College. I graduated in 2001. So I was on campus in the 90s when all these celebrities were, Atlanta turned into the new it place, like while I was there. Mm-hmm. So, it was nothing to see people on, Common would just be sitting in our student center, which is crazy because we didn't have a lot in our student center. It's still a HBCU in the 90s after all. There wasn't a lot there for us. But, what is it? So what was it like being back on the yard for your graduation? I mean, it's a completely different neighborhood now. Everything has to be completely different than it was when you were there, at least outside of the immediate campus.
Yeah. The city has changed. I mean, when I got there, gentrification was starting. And 30 years later, you see what it's become. But the campus, the yard, the College of Fine Arts, some things never change, and for good reason. But the energy was beautiful, man. And, it was a lot of full circle moments there. My son being there, unfortunately, he didn't graduate, but my son being there, the dean of the College of Fine Arts is now Dr. Felicia Rashad, who's a friend of mine. The assistant dean to the College of Fine Arts, Denise Saunders Thomas, who was a college classmate of mine. Who helped usher me through graduation and helped me matriculate. She's there. Taraji P. Henson, who graduated Howard, was receiving her honorary doctorate and giving the commencement speech. She was my classmate when I was there back in the 80s. So for us to have all of these full circle moments was truly amazing. So that's what it was like. For me, being on the yard, 31 years later, and being in Berg Gym, walking with my class, my graduating class and classmates, it was just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I live here in DC, and my wife's younger brother he just completed his freshman year at Howard. So I was moving him out of Drew. Mm-hmm. While I'm listening to the speech while you're all in Berg, because it was raining. It's supposed to be on the yard, but it was raining. Yeah. Amazing. So I have to ask, so on Blackish, Dre is a sneakerhead. Are you a sneakerhead in real life? Because I see Nike gave you a pair of gotta be one of one Howard University Jordan Air Force Ones. Jordan 4s.
When you're a one of one, all you can receive is a one of one.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I am a sneakerhead, man. I have about 400 pair of some exclusive things in my closet at home that some I don't wear, others I do. And when I wear them, they're like, man, why are you wearing those?
I was going to ask, do you wear your shoes? You just collect the shoes? Because I'm a sneakerhead too, and I wear all mine. I have to. My wife is so tired of seeing them.
I collect them to wear them. That is the reason of why I do what I do. Growing up, look, man, growing up in the hood in Compton, coming from nothing, having nothing, that was status, a way having status for us, getting new J's. And I only owned one pair of J's growing up as a kid, man, and they were given to me by my boy. They were his high school basketball shoes, and they were purple and white Air Force Ones, or white with purple trim, because he went to the school called Linwood, and that's where their colors. And he gave them to me after a few wears, and that was my first and only pair of J's growing up. And it was our dream. It was like, I gotta have the new J's, whatever they are. And once I made it, once I started making some money, is when I started, collecting and getting them for myself. So yeah, I have over 400 pair. But I have friends. Like, I thought I was doing something. I was talking to Shannon Sharp one day. He said, how many pairs? I got about 400. He's like, hey, you got to catch up, man. You got to catch up. His number is astonishing.
Wow. Yeah. I'm about 300 myself. I got shoes in storage. My wife really is over my use of space in our house. Like I said, we live in a townhouse in DC. She's like, bro, this is getting out of hand.
You ain't got to tell me. Look, I have a house and I have a townhouse. My townhouse is my closet for my shoes and my overflow of clothes. That's how serious it is for me.
I love it. Also, I love that you said matriculate, because I think that's a Black college word. We used to harp on that word at Morehouse, our matriculation. And I never heard that word outside of HBCUs, but I love it. I love hearing that. You have this amazing film project that I want to talk about. A Dream Delivered, The Lost Letters of Hawkins Wilson. So for starters, tell me about this project and how you got involved. What is it and how did you get involved in this project?
It's a story of the descendants of Hawkins Wilson. The family just started, building or making their family tree, and they got stuck, like all of us do. I remember growing up, my family tree was the family Bible. And in the family Bible, you had those first couple of pages, grandparents, parents, children. And, I could only go back to my mother's grandmother. Well, actually, I take that back. My mother's mother and my dad's mother. That was it. I can only go back to grandparents. My children were fortunate enough to be able to at least have their great-grandparents in their lives for a time. And so, it's a story of, this family, trying to put the pieces together to find out, what their lineage is, where they come from, who they come from. And they asked me to be a part of it because I had started my journey as well.
He understood the importance of bringing together the branches of your family tree.
It's no longer just pieces to the puzzle. They have the puzzle.
And to see and to witness, this family go through this process to understand why they were attracted to certain things in life, in professions and places to live. And to find out that, the mother was or is a ordained minister. Hawkins was an ordained minister in his time. They kept passing through this city, where family was and whatnot, not knowing that is where Hawkins came to settle. And he settled in the church and was an ordained minister in this church that they would frequent on occasion, not knowing this history. And then, the dominoes started to fall. The information that they were able to find and dig up made everything make sense to them and had everything come full circle. So to be a part of that and to witness that and to see and experience it for myself was worthwhile into itself. And, I hope when an audience watches this, that they would go out and do the same thing. During the process, I found out that I found out that on my mother's side, we can trace it back to 1857, 1859, the mid 1850s, great-great-grandmother, who was possibly enslaved, had a piece of land, met a man, started a family, unfortunately, and worked this farm that they didn't own, unfortunately lost her husband, found a new husband, blended their family, owned property, owned their own farm, and in 1902. And she lost her second husband. But now she's a single mother, owning farmland and farming in 1910. And then, from there, it went on to birth my grandfather's father. And so this is the information that I was able to get. So now I'm able to, put these pieces together for my family, and so that's what makes it all worthwhile for me to connect the dots, because we all have family members that, was oral history for us.
Right.
My dad he was the youngest of 16 children, in Little Rock, Arkansas. And by the time he was born, he had brothers and sisters that were already out of the house, already in other places living their lives. He had brothers and sisters that he never met, that he only heard of, that he only saw pictures of. Because of my partnership or my involvement with Ancestry, I can put some of these pieces together now. And that's what this family did, and that's what I'm doing, and hopefully other families, when they watch the film, will do the same thing.
It's so interesting. Like I'm so happy to hear that you were able to trace your family back. I went to Ghana for the Year of the Return back in 2019. I was one of thousands of Americans. We all went back there. My wife is actually originally from Ghana, so we went to take a trip to go visit her family and stuff. And I had such an emotional response to being there. And I don't know how far back we haven't traced my family history back that far, but just the idea of the potential and the possibility that this is where my family could have come from. Yeah. Like, I'm sitting here standing on a beach while there's parties going on behind me, and I'm just looking out into the ocean like, man, maybe this is where my family was before our history was lost. Maybe that, and it was such an emotional thing for me. I had to like remove myself in several places. I went to go see, the Elmina, like the slave castles and stuff like that. Yeah. And I went to go see all that stuff, and it just was such a moving thing. And it was kind of painful even being there, because it's like, what if, that idea of what if. So I kind of wonder what it's like for you, having made these discoveries. Like, what does that even feel like? It's wonderful to be able to give that to your family, but just on a personal level, like, how does it feel to be able to trace your history back, to know what your history is back to a certain point that most of us can't get to or haven't been able to get to yet?
It's like a sense of completion, having everything come full circle. It's interesting that you bring up that I was part of the original group who put the Year of the Return together. So the year you were there, I had to bow out, and I couldn't make it that year. So I was there the year before with Boris Kojo and his brother Patrick and everybody else. We put that together. So I'm glad that you were able to make that pilgrimage with the group. But I've been on the continent 5 times, man. Ghana, Elmina Slave Castle, walked through the door of no return, wearing my T-shirt that says, "I am my ancestors' wildest dream." And it's just a sense of pride to be able to come back, to the motherland, to a place where we were never supposed to come back to.
Right.
And so doing that, being a part of this, finding out the information that I found out about my family, watching other families do the same thing, is just a fulfillment that words can only begin to express.
For this film, A Dream Delivered, Those Lost Letters of Hawkins Wilson, does it kind of get into how you can go about even finding records of your family? Because I wonder if this is the kind of thing that might inspire others to try to dig further into their history. Like I saw the trailer, and I guess they discovered these letters that had been written, and that unlocks, if I'm understanding this properly, and that kind of unlocks a door into their history and who they are and everything. And I wonder if most people even understand or know where to even start looking for their history and who they are and where they come from. Like, is that part of the story, explaining like how you can even go back and start to figure out who you are and where you came from?
I hope that's what families take from this. I hope that's what people start to do, to take it back further than just Big Mama. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Down south someplace. You know, because sometimes that's all we know. That's all we have. But you know, hopefully people are inspired and see how this family feels completed. You know,
right.
See how, you know, some answers that they have felt answered. You know, felt resolved. That's what it's about, and I hope that's what families take from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I did some digging myself, and I got back to just my great grandfather. Now, my father knows all the people in the family. You know, their oral history is very strong. But I was actually able to find like papers, like death certificates and things like that. And that's something I don't think they'd ever seen. They'd never seen anything with his handwriting on it or anything like that. And that in and of itself was just kind of like, it's just amazing how your own personal history can be so emotional, but unlock things for you. Like, man, this is really something that a person that I've never met, but who helped me get to where I am, like, just even the handwriting of somebody,
Yeah.
you know, it's really fascinating. And I'm really glad you're part of this project, and glad that projects like this exist. I know Henry Louis Gates is part of it, and you know, this is his bag, right? Like this is his whole thing, trying to connect people to who they are.
But you know, going back, you know, just to touch on something that you said, you know, you found death certificates and whatnot. You know, the story of Hawkins. You know, this man was sold at age 5 or 6, and he still remembered his family, and with great detail, man. So he went, and he couldn't read or write at the time. So he went and gave this information to someone who wrote the letter at the Bureau to get this out to find his family. Unfortunately, he was never reconnected with his family. But to see these letters that he now, as an adult, ordained minister and all that, the way he spoke about his family, what he remembered at age 5 and 6, you know, and spoke about where his sisters and brothers were and how he spoke about that. He was like, well, they belong to, you know, he's speaking of his siblings as property. You know, to see those things, to see that letter, those letters from back then, and to see it come full circle now, even though he never was reunited with his family, those letters have, you know, been reunited with his family and is bringing his family together today. That is what's amazing about this project.
Well, it sounds amazing, and I can't wait to check it out myself. The trailer got me inspired to know more and learn more. And, you know, we appreciate your contributions there and everything that you're doing to help bring that story to light, because these are the kind of stories we need to have more shine on. We need to understand how to find out who we are, where we come from, because, I mean, it's everything. Like you said, it's completion. It's all that. We do this thing called Blackfessions, where we have you tell us something about yourself that most people might not expect to hear from you, right? Like something about your Blackness that ends up being a confessional because, well, you know, it's just not what we thought we were going to hear. So do you have a Blackfession, something that about you that would surprise other Black people listening to us now?
The only thing that I can think of right now, I don't drink Kool-Aid.
Ever or like now?
I haven't drank Kool-Aid in over 25 years.
Okay. So that's fair. And I think that's probably why you're successful, actually. You're probably healthy enough to still be here so you can actually continue on in life. Because I don't think Kool-Aid households make it too far. I don't think they do.
And I never called it cherry or strawberry. It was always red. What flavor you want? I want red.
Yeah, though funny, because grape is an actual flavor, but red is also a flavor. I have this debate all the time with people. Like, red is a flavor as far as I'm concerned. It could be cherry, it could be strawberry, it could be was it mixed berry, whatever one of the one that came in the blue pouch.
Yeah,
that was red too. Tropical, there you go, tropical. Yeah. You know, that's a Black fashion I'm proud to hear. My children have never had Kool-Aid.
Yeah, no. Why? That's why we diabetic now, Panama.
Right, because when you make Kool-Aid, if you want to make a genuine good batch of Kool-Aid, you pour sugar first, and then you add the other, like you pour from your heart.
Yeah.
And the heart will lead you astray when it comes to making Kool-Aid. So so I'm glad you haven't had any Kool-Aid. I don't know if we would have got all them seasons of Blackish if you had been drinking Kool-Aid.
And I also will tell you this, man. While the Obamas were in office, I took a USO trip to Afghanistan, and we flew over on Air Force Two, which was, I believe, the First Lady's plane.
Did not know there was an Air Force Two, honestly. I'd never heard that before.
Air Force Two. And I was going through the cabinets, and this is when I knew that we had a Black First Family. There was packets of grape Kool-Aid in the cabinet. So I had to take a package of grape Kool-Aid off of Air Force Two and bring it home, dog. I still have it sitting in my office at home. It's a little small package of grape Kool-Aid that I took off of First Lady Obama's plane, Air Force Two, that I've been cherishing for, quite some time now.
I have never heard of them drinking Kool-Aid. You might have just literally dropped like a bombshell.
Grape Kool-Aid on Air Force Two.
That is amazing. Well, look, brother, I appreciate you spending some time with us here today at Dear Culture. Thank you for your insights, for the information. Thank you for sharing a bit about your Howard journey. I always love to hear HBCU stories. It's really, really near and dear to my own heart. So thank you for sharing that.
You got it.
And thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for all the roles you've taken that bring joy and pleasure to the Black community and to the community at large. Like, truly a gem, truly a pleasure. So thank you for all of that.
You got it, bro.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening to Dear Culture. If you like what you heard, be sure to download the Griot app and listen to more episodes of Dear Culture and more original content from the Griot's Black Podcast Network. Email all questions, thoughts, concerns, suggestions, compliments to podcast@thegriot.com. Dear Culture, it's an original production of the Griot Black Podcast Network. I'm your host, Panama Jackson. It's produced by myself and Crystal Grant and edited by Cameron Blackwell. Taji Sr. is our logistic associate producer, and Regina Griffin is our managing editor of podcasts. So for myself, Panama Jackson here, Dear Culture, have a Black one. Next week on Dear Culture, a conversation with an independent Black filmmaker, Renika McQueen. In my write-up, I made a couple comments like, "You probably never seen this movie." Like I wasn't gracious about me
you
presenting.
trashed me.
Okay, I'm gonna have to take that.